Hey, Carl! I just sent you an email with a task, so get it done as soon as possible!
Fine, what's the due date?
I'm not gonna sign one of those, just get it done whenever!
Wow, Carl, you've been given license to procrastinate. Good job!
Wow, I guess I have. You know what? Minesweeper Day!
Are you sure you want to do that, Carl? That sounds like a bad idea, especially with that guy.
Yeah, I'll be fine. What's the worst that can happen?
Yankee Doodle went to town riding on a pony. He stuck his feather in his cap and called it macaroni.
Hey, could you shut up and maybe, I don't know, lose some weight?
Why would I do that?
Because you're fat.
Hey, thanks for noticing.
What the heck's going on today?
I don't know, Carl. Did you read your task?
Okay, let's see this stupid task. Reply to this email with anything at all, or I will make Seatail sing patriotic public domain songs as close to you as possible all day tomorrow. Lovely.
Camptown lady, sing this song, doo-da, doo-da. Camptown lady, sing this song, doo-da-doo-da day.
I'm almost glad I didn't fire that guy. This is hilarious! Have you ever wanted to write code, but not necessarily have your code execute the way you want it to?
No. Who in their right mind would ever want that?
Well, if you ever did want that, then boy do I have the programming language for you. Whenever is an esoteric programming language with absolutely no sense of urgency. Any commands you give it will execute, well, whenever. It was developed by David Morgan Marr, and the official interpreter was written in Java. Its solangs.org page is also a stub, probably because nobody really had any urgency with regards to putting content onto the page. Visually speaking, there isn't much difference between whenever and a typical programming language. That is, if the program in question is simply a program meant to print only one line of text. That's because whenever's print function acts exactly how you would expect it to. However, if you want to split this Hello World program into 2 lines for whatever reason, you would quickly run into issues. Sure, it might sometimes say Hello World when you run it, but you're equally likely to get World Hello. However, there is a way to make this run in the correct order. The defer statement will ignore a line while a condition is met. If, on line 2, we put in defer 1 at the beginning, then it will ignore line 2 until line 1 is off of the list. After line 1 is off of the list of commands, then it won't defer line 2. Now, it will always print Hello World no matter how many times we run the program. Now, let's do something more interesting, such as assigning a value to a variable. That's interesting because whenever has no variables at all.
Wait, if whenever has no variables, then how are you supposed to do anything with it? How are you supposed to store data?
Well, on a line, you can add additional copies of another line to the list of commands. Let's take a look at this program. On line 1, it adds 9 copies of line 2. On line 2, it defers if line 1 hasn't run yet, but otherwise, it prints hi. So, when this program is run, the print hi line actually gets run 10 times, and so 10 copies of the word hi are printed to the console.
Well, that's cool, I guess, but I still don't understand how that's supposed to be used to store data.
Well, using the n function, you can get the number of times a line is on the list. So, if on line 2 we print n of 2, we will be able to write a program that counts backwards from 10. Using some simple algebra, we can make it count upwards to 10. Hooray! Whenever also has a read function, which reads in a number from the user. So, if this is plugged into the counting backwards program from before, it will count back from our input. Hold on, that read function doesn't seem to exist! When I used it, it crashed the whenever interpreter! Why did you lie to me like this? Oh yeah, even though read is mentioned in the specifications, it wasn't actually implemented in the interpreter. So because the interpreter is open source, I implemented it. I hope it works good enough. I'm putting the source for my modified interpreter on GitHub, but I'm not going to be maintaining it any further. If you're interested, you can fork it, I don't know. That's better. Now make the interpreter work correctly the first time from now on.
So now you have an input command. Can you do something that uses the input?
Sure, we can make the truth machine program. This program takes an input, and if the input is a 1, it prints 1 indefinitely. If it's a 0, it outputs a single 0. The truth machine's short, it's just 3 lines. On line 1, it reads your input and puts an extra number of line 2s onto the list based on your input. If you type a 1, it puts 1 copy of line 2 onto the list, and if you type a 0, it adds 0 extra copies of 2 onto the list. Line 2 itself is fascinating. Moving on, line 3 will defer if line 1 remains unrun. Otherwise, it prints the number of line 2's minus 1. Line 3 also makes use of the again function. Again will make it so that the line does not get removed from the list if the condition is reached. In this case, if there are 2 copies of line 2, then it won't get rid of line 3. So if you typed a 1, it loops.
There will be no escape.
Well, that joke's been used to death.
So here's one last program, the calculator.
Calculators are dumb. You know what? Make a calculator that doesn't respect you and does a random calculation. That will be amazing! Ugh.
Anyway, this calculator takes in 2 inputs and will randomly choose whether or not to add them or to subtract them. Lines 1 and 2 read inputs and store them as copies of lines 3 and 4. Lines 3 and 4 themselves do absolutely nothing. Line 5 will add the number of times lines 3 and 4 appear together. Since the read function adds new lines to the list, we need to subtract the original 2 lines that were on the list at the start. Line 6 will subtract the number of times lines 3 and 4 appear. Lastly, the defer statement will make sure that the other calculation hasn't already been printed on both lines 5 and 6. And now we have a randomized calculator. Anyway, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time!